Hey everybody, just give me a second here, getting things set up. Just take me a moment because I do this on both TikTok and YouTube. So I'm live on the tube. I am just waiting on TikTok to catch up with me, and away we'll go. Um, just wanted to kind of start off this week by saying, I've had a pretty awesome week. I just finished recording a podcast with an author of a new book that I'm going to talk a little bit more about later on. But he's given a special deal in this book. You'll get more details on it to come, but this is a book you got to read, especially if you're a guy. So that's it. I just literally just wrapped it up 5 minutes ago, so I'm a little bit in catch-up mode here. So this week, I kind of want to talk about, and I really want to get feedback from you guys because, hey, Shonda Bear, hey, I don't know about y'all. um, I was asked to write an article for a parenting magazine, not Parenting Magazine, because there actually is a magazine titled that, but a parenting magazine, pretty large one, about the importance of fathers and the roles that they play in their children's lives. And I haven't written the article yet. I did do what I normally do because I do write articles for various things. As most of you know that are my regulars. I own a gym and I'm a fitness trainer, so I write articles about fitness all the time. But what I do is I make little bullet points, right? So I've already done my bullet points, but I really wanted to get feedback from you guys on the importance of fathers. And I think we've lost that as a society, right? I think that there's been, for a lot of reasons, but there's been a real loss in the understanding of how important fathers are to their children. And I don't want this to be bashing single mothers or bashing women or bashing the court system, all right? Although I know it's going to come up. I'm realistic. Really, what I want to talk about, though, and I want to get your input on, is if your father was in your life, how important was it to you that he was, and what do you think was the biggest thing he taught you, right? Because where I want to kind of go with the article is that, and again, I'm not knocking single mothers at all. But one of the things that I think a lot of people don't understand is that even the best of the best of the best single mothers cannot teach their children what fathers can. And I'd make the argument the opposite way. I hear guys say to me all the time, "Oh, fathers should get custody because they're going to be better." I think that would be just as much a mistake as if, as we have now with mothers getting primary custody, right? Because if it were just fathers getting custody or primary custody, if everything flipped overnight, I think it would be just as bad because fathers cannot bring to their children, cannot teach their children what mothers teach. The beauty of the human condition, if you will, is that we are alike in a lot of ways, and I'm talking men versus women, but we are not so alike in a lot of ways. And I often talk about ad nauseum, and it it infuriates some people, both men and women. But the reality is, we benefit most from each other, right? Men being alone and women being alone doesn't benefit either party, and I know I put content out there all the time saying, men need to walk away and all that, and right now I honestly believe we do for a lot of reasons, and I don't want to go there with that, not today. But in the end, I ultimately believe that the walking away is to try and address and wake people up so that ultimately we come back together. Because I do think we benefit, especially when it comes to children. And that's where I'm going to go with my article, is that fathers have been, whatever, however you want to portray it. I kind of have in my mind to talk about the whole deadbeat dad thing. For those of you, we've all heard the term, right? But what you don't realize is really how that became so mainstream. And it was political that did it. So back in the 90s, believe it or not, it was the Republican Party. They wanted to address welfare reform, right? So there was a laws passed in 96, if I remember right. Bill Clinton was president. He was on board with it. Massive welfare reform. But one of the ways they tried to drum up support for that was this whole deadbeat dad thing. Now, it existed beforehand, but they really, really drummed it up then. I mean, I remember back then you couldn't turn on the TV or watch a news program or read a newspaper. That's how long ago it was. People don't even read newspapers anymore. And you would see something about how all dads are deadbeats, right? And they hammered it because the goal was to get this bill passed. And it's morphed from there. It really laid a dent into how society viewed dads. In my opinion, it was the most damaging thing. You could argue with me about the changes in divorce laws and custody and all that, and I grant all that, right? But and it was a marketing campaign. Make no mistake about it. It was a marketing campaign, right? They'll never admit it was, but it was. It was to vilify fathers, portray them all as deadbeats, and basically get them out for whatever reasons. And here we are now. Look where we're at now, right? How many fathers are stopped from seeing their children? How many kids are growing up in single-parent homes? And again, as I said earlier, I'd make the argument the opposite way. If fathers were getting sole custody or primary custody 90% of the time, that would not benefit children either. It should be both. So one of the things that I want to go with my article is to kind of reverse all that and say, this is what fathers bring to the table that mothers can't. And it's not to knock mothers. I have no intention whatsoever of knocking mothers in any way, shape, or form in this article. It's going to be the exact opposite. It's to say exactly what I'm saying to you, which is we all have our unique abilities that are specific to us as moms and dads that the other cannot do. And I'm sorry, some of you are going to argue, yes, they can. No, they can't. I'm sorry. You as a woman cannot teach what I as a man can, and I as a man cannot teach what you as a woman can. We think differently, we are wired differently, we approach things differently, and children benefit most when they see both sides of it. And I think that's kind of where I want to go overall in the article. But I also want to be able to give them examples. So if you're jumping in, as always, I like to ask, and I see some of you already done that, let me know where you're from, because it's one of my things, right? It's what fascinates me. I love seeing where people are from. I love that this beautiful thing called the internet. It's also a horrible thing, but the beautiful thing is we can communicate across the world from all different countries. And I love to see where people are from. Say hi, jump in. But the conversation today, what I really want to know is, however you want to phrase it, unique to you, but let me know, what did your dad do for you? What do you think was the best benefit you received from your father? Okay. And then the other side of it is, if you want to jump in on it, is if you are a dad, what is the best thing you can teach your children? What do you think it is that your priority to teach your children is? And the beauty of this is there's no right or wrong answers. All right. Everybody's different. I have my answer. I'm not going to give it right away. Maybe towards the end I will. I'll definitely be giving it in the article. But let me know what you think, because I may incorporate some of it. I'll leave names out, but I may incorporate some of it into my article, because I think it's important to teach people that it is so important for fathers to be involved in their lives. And I don't want to, let's leave out the whole, my ex walked away and doesn't want to talk to this. I don't want to hear that crap today. Okay. It's not the place for this. I want no negativity. I want positivity. I know I got a better chance of winning the lottery. I know, but share with me, what were the positive things your father brought? What are the positive things you're bringing as a father? One other thing I want to add to this, especially if you are a dad, how do you view what you teach your daughters versus what you teach your sons? And I will talk a little bit about that in a bit, because I think that's important. And I'm the first to tell you I raised 3 girls and 3 boys. I had 6 children, okay? I did raise the boys differently from the girls. And a lot of people will slam me for that, but stay tuned for when we talk about that. All right, I'm just going to scroll back, go through some of these messages, because I know I've been yapping for a bit. So Gianfilla from Italy, how you doing? Ulysses from Johannesburg, I've seen you on before. Sean, good day, sir. Mimi, hi. Mimi, I'm sorry to see your dad pass away. Mine has passed away also. He passed in 2011. So, but I'm a little bit older than most of you watching this. Sean said, I know exactly how important a father in your life is. I grew up without one. My kids never will. It's interesting, Sean, that you say that, because my dad was a good guy, all right? But my mother basically alienated him from me. So I got to see him for 6 hours, 12 to 6 every other Saturday. That's all I was allowed, and my mother wouldn't give a minute more. And so while he was in my life, and the man did everything he could to have an effect on my life, and did some good, I kind of know what it's like to be without one too, because, you know, back then, this was in the 60s and 70s, I was really the only divorced kid in my whole neighborhood. Everybody else, mom and dad was together. A lot of people saying, you know, fathers are essential. They absolutely are. Mimi said your father wasn't able to be a good father because he was sick. I'm sorry to hear that. You know, it's a tough situation, you know. And hey, I'm not trying to glorify every dad. I know there's bad dads, there's bad moms, there's bad people, right? But I want to focus again on the positivity, and I hope that in the end you can come up with things that your father did that were great. Jan, problem is society is not ready to accept the role of the father equals with the mother. I agree with you. That's kind of one of the reasons I want to make the article the way I do, because they've given me free reign to write it however I want, and I could go a million different directions with it. I don't want it to be negative. I want it to be a positive thing, because I also am realistic enough to know that a parenting magazine, 90% of their readership is women. And if I can get one woman, to see that fathers are equal to mothers, that's, you kind of nailed on the head what my goal is with that, is to show that children need both, right? And as Sean just said right after that. By the way, thank you for you guys, Hank. Hey, Hank, I haven't seen you in a while. Thank you for the weights. And Steve, thank you for the mini speaker. Steve Cross, morning book, how are you doing? Well, it's evening where I am, but I am doing fan-freaking-tastic, to be honest with you. Mr. Keithy, I really enjoy your content. Thank you. I appreciate that. Daniel, I'm 21, African, and we have to get married because of the culture, but it's not worth it now. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Something that I want to start talking a little bit more about is marriage, because I've been reading some stuff lately, and it is, wow. You know, I talk all the time about men walking away from marriage, and women are too, but the numbers are really scary. Marriage is dead. We talked about it on a live a couple weeks ago. Yeah, it's up on YouTube if you want to go see it. So I haven't seen my 8-year-old son in a year and a half. I hear you. Human engineer, thank God I didn't have kids. I hear you. I get it. I understand it. Part of me thinks it's sad too, right? I mean, think about this. As human beings, what's our primary existence for? To create kids. It really is. Propagate the species. I mean, that's point blank biology, right? But yeah, 50-50 should be starting point. Yes, I agree. Serbia, East Africa. Love it. I love hearing all these countries. Human engineer, a lad needs his dad. Mine left when I was 2 because of my feminist narcissist mother. Yeah, and that's kind of the point with that, right? So one of the things I kind of mentioned is you know, how dads teach sons and how they teach their daughters, and the example they set for both. I think that is critical. And again, I am not in any way, shape, or form knocking women or mothers, right? they do the same thing. They teach their daughters and sons things differently also. We need to acknowledge that. A lot of people won't even allow us to have that conversation anymore. If you think about it, we're not allowed to have that conversation. I'm a little worried that this is going to get shut down, to be honest with you, because I'm having a conversation a lot of people aren't going to like, which is sad because that doesn't help anyone. Demo from Bulgaria, how you doing? Charlie from New York, my home state. Couldn't be happier that I've escaped New York. Sorry, my friend. London, East Africa, Saudi Arabia. God, this is probably the most wide-ranging live I've had yet. Australia. Human engineer. NC with my mom. You care to share what part of NC you're in? Because I'm in NC too. Looney, Dad taught me to fish and the value of money. Interesting one, right? I want to hear more of that, guys. What did your dad teach you? What was as you look back now, mind you, I'm 60 years old. Yeah, I turned 60 recently. And I think about what my father taught me, and it's probably going to be the one that I'm going to say is the most important thing. I'll get to it in a little bit. But what did your dad teach you? And if you're a dad, what are you, like I said, what are you trying to teach your parent or your kids? What is the most important thing? Poland, Oxbow, Bundaberg. I am loving this. St. Catharines. Sean Sumner. I love St. Catharines. So the last time I was in St. Catharines was 2009, 10, somewhere in there. I am an ex-competitive rower. The World Masters Rowing was there. I competed at Worlds in St. Catharines. What an awesome town you live in. As I remember it, there was one bar that we all hung out with, rowers from across the world. We cleaned that bar out. What people don't know about rowing is we work hard, we train hard, we race hard, and we drink hard, or we did. Love St. Catharines. One of my favorite areas I've ever visited in the world. Side note there. I love this one. All right, so let me just kind of trying to fit it all on one screen here. I'm not sure how to say your name. Odjabavasakher. Free diving, skiing, fishing, hunting, hiking, foraging for mushrooms. I love stuff you did with your dad, right? Daniel, be respectful in society. You're on the line about where I'm coming from. Mick, hi from Mexico. Love Mexico. East Africa, New Zealand. Sean Durbandy, in my case, discipline. You're stealing mine, brother. Self-confidence, empty. I love this. Yes, Sean. Yes, you're on what I was going to say. Demetrius, thank you for thanking me. Mimi, I want to get married. Why? No, I'm kidding. I can't. Be careful. Dads are very important. Very important than mothers. I'm guessing you meant to say more important than mothers. I will disagree with you slightly. I think they're equally as important. That's the way I phrase it. Because we, as I said earlier, we both bring different things to the table that benefit children. Okay? Both of us do. We can definitely, Brad, we can pause the human reproductive process and start being selective. Pretty much is on pause. An interesting thing, not that it's germane to this conversation, but I read an article Monday about Japan. Wow, are they in trouble? Basically, for every birth, there's 2 deaths. Their population is going to plummet over the next few decades. China's in the same boat. It's like plummeting. Take that from what you will, but it was very interesting to hear that. Spain, Brisbane, Namibia. I can never say these things right. I love all these guys. I love it. Garden City. Okay. All right. So, excuse me. Demetrius, from our fathers, we learned how to become men. Yes. What women can teach us? How to become gay, maybe? No, I don't think they teach us. Sorry. You're going to get me in trouble. You're going to get me banned for saying that. Hold on. I need a drink from hey, check out the merch store. And that's a conversation we can have. What do dads bring differently than what moms do? Curtis over on YouTube. To always respect people, to spend time together, be self-sufficient, not be afraid. Curtis, you basically just stole my answer. Respect is one of my big ones. Sean kind of touched on that. I'm going to get a little bit more detail on my answer in a little bit. I just want to kind of get your answers. Accountability for your actions, David. Yes. Something that, again, I don't want this to be negative towards mothers, but mothers are nurturing. Fathers are too, but they're nurturing in different ways. Mothers bring to the table, I think, this is my opinion, take from it what you will, you can disagree with me, that's fine. They never want to see their children fail. They always want them to succeed. Fathers, on the other hand, teach their children to fail. Teach them how to respond when they fail. Again, there's crossover. These are not absolutes. I don't want it to come across that way. And it kind of gets into what I'm talking about is to understand. I think one of the things that dads bring to the table is to understand that life is not fair. We are in a world right now where there's participation trophies for everything. I always call it the orange slice. So what do I mean by that? When I was way back in Little League at 8, 9, 10 years old, whatever it was, I had a coach. If we won the game, he would buy us ice cream. Little ice cream bars at the concession stand. If we didn't win, we didn't get it. Now, today, he would be vilified for that. You need to do it every game. No. He was teaching us the value of winning and losing. He was showing us, in a manner of speaking, that if you work hard and you win, there's a reward. If you work hard, because his thing was do your best. I mean, he was one of the best at ever coaching as far as teaching to do your best. He didn't care really whether we won or lose, but he wanted to drive that point home that you are going to win or you are going to lose, and there's going to be consequences or benefits to both, right? However you want to do it. I look back at that now, 50 years later, and I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember the games we won and going and getting that ice cream home and how great it felt. And I remember the games we lost where we didn't get it, as opposed to when my kids were in Little League. I call it the orange slice thing. There was every game, there was a parent assigned to bring a snack. Whether you won or lost, you got your snack, And the reason I say orange slices is one of the mothers, that was her thing. She always brought orange slices. In fact, she brought them whether she was supposed to or not. I don't know why. But, kids never learned the repercussions of losing or winning, or the benefits of winning. It all became together. And I think we're seeing that in society now where people can't handle adversity because we're going to face adversity in life. Always. It's never going to go away completely. It's always going to be part of life. And I think that dads do a better job at helping children to realize that it's not always going to be perfect. You're not always going to get a participation trophy. You are going to be held accountable. Dads tend to hold children far more accountable than women do, than moms do. Again, I'm not slighting moms. I don't intend it to come across that way. It is the reality, all right? Curtis said, through failure, we learn. Exactly. That I couldn't agree more with that. And then the other side of it, I love what he said here, but sometimes we need mom's nurturing to get us out of that funk. Triple round of applause. I wish I had 6 hands, okay? Bingo. That's exactly the point that I'm trying to make, is that there's where moms and dads together help the children to learn, right? Because, we learn through failure. We're going to hit adversity. Dads are going to be there to teach that you're going to do that. Moms are going to teach you how to overcome that, and dads will do that too. These are not black and whites. Don't think of them that way. Think of them as grays, right? We're all at 5, on a particular thing. Dads may be at 7, moms may be at 4. On another thing, it might be moms are at 7. It's not a contest, right? I don't want it to come across that way. Um, Demetrius said, fathers learn their daughters to become women. I want to get into that in a little bit. Just stay tuned on that. Brian, to center your life in altruistic purpose, know that life is suffering. Yes, life. I'm sorry to say, life. There is suffering in life. I agree with you there. And dads help you to overcome that. I truly believe that. Steve said, Dad instilled work ethic in us. Never came on holidays with us. And again, I get what you're doing there, right? That's another thing you're seeing. So I'm not trying to slight anyone here, but you're seeing a lot more in these younger generations. I'm sorry to say, they don't have the work ethic, right? They pick on me as a boomer because I have a strong work ethic, right? I don't take sick days. I own businesses. I have to show up to work. I don't get to say I need a mental health day. I have employees. My expectation is my employees are going to show up to work. I had one start arguing with me recently, like, "Oh, I should be able to come in whatever time I want. If I don't feel like coming in at 8 o'clock, I'll be in by 10. What's the problem? I'll just work 10 to 6 instead of 8 to 4 or whatever, right?" And I said, "Really? You think that should apply to everyone?" "Absolutely, it should apply. No one should be forced to work a set schedule." And I said, "How about firemen?" "What do you mean?" "Well, fire shifts are generally 7 a.m. to 7 a.m., right? They do 24-hour thing. So if an entire station said, I'm leaving at 7 and the next shift's not coming until, let's say, 10, that's 3 hours with no coverage. You okay with that?" "Well, that's different." "No, it's not. No, it's not." Okay? Yes, there's flexibility. There should be. I agree with that. But this mindset that people should be able to work only when they want to work, it's not going to work in the real world. And again, I said to this person, "Okay, do you go out to eat?" "Well, yeah." "So if all the waitresses decided that they weren't ready to come in when you were there, they were going to come in a couple hours later, so there was no one to get your food ordered and all that, you'd be okay with that, right?" "Well, no, I'm there to eat." Kind of opened their eyes a little bit. And of course, they still wanted to fight with me, but Brian, being a good leader means leading through competence and inspiration, not fear and hyperbole. I agree with you there. It's funny, as I talked about that coach that I had in Little League, he didn't realize it, but when I later coached Little League, I basically was mirroring him. And I always tell this story, and I don't know if I've told it here before, but I talk about it a lot. When I was coaching Little League, I had 1 year 8-year-olds and the next year 9-year-olds. They don't know what they're doing on the field. I mean, come on, they don't, all right? My goal was to teach them how to play the game, how to get in front of a grounder and block it with your body, something even major leaguers these days don't do, how to catch a fly with something like 2 hands, simple stuff like that, right? The basics, they're known as. And I didn't care if we won or lost. It was irrelevant to me if we won or lost. And my viewpoint was I had 14 kids on the team. So 14 kids per team. Obviously, 9 are on the field. I would rotate out, and I had a whole system of it. So everyone got exactly the same number of innings played over the course of the season, right? So I would have my set 9 to start the game. After the 3rd inning, I would take 5 players out, put the next 5 in, and, move people around. Next game, those 5 that started were there, and I had a whole system to it, right? Everyone got equal time. Parents hated me because we got our ass kicked. We were like 2-12 or 14. I forget how many games it was, right? But the kids all got an equal opportunity to play, and more importantly, to learn. Because my viewpoint as a coach was to teach them how to play the game, right? These are 8 and 9-year-olds. These are not high school kids. If I was coaching high school, when I coach high school football, it's a whole other ballgame. You got to win, right? Totally different one. But I was teaching these kids how to play the game, and again, kind of talking about what my prior coach, winning and losing, that it is part of life. This mentality that we're not going to keep score anymore because, we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings is complete and utter bullshit. You are helping no one with that. No one benefits from that. Because later on, those kids are going to grow up. They're going to go to a corporation. They're going to get a job. And not everyone's going to be treated equally. I'm sorry. You know, I've been in C-level positions. The cream will rise, and you know, again, I get there's other shit with that, but there's winners and there's losers in life, and that's something I think dads teach better than moms. It's just my opinion. And if you disagree, shout out, shout out. Ray J, I like that name, from Ireland. That's the other thing too. I love your name. Share with me what you think is the biggest benefits dad bring to children, and if you have something that your dad did that, you know, a lesson that you really took home. And if you're a dad, I want to hear what you think is the most important things you teach your children, because I think, as someone said earlier, Rocky Boyd, mountains of Western NC. I'm over on the other side. I'm on the coast, my friend, Rocky Broad. I'll be headed your way in the fall. I'm headed over to Asheville area. As I was saying, you know, we all, empathetic, also mountains of Western NC. You know what? We all got to hook up, get together, and have a beer or coffee or something. You know, again, my purpose with this whole thing, and I want men and women to chime in, is to really, you're helping me to write this article and helping me to educate people. Keep in mind, this magazine is not huge, all right? But it's got a pretty good readership. And most of that readership, to be honest with you, I'm guessing, I don't know the exact breakdown, but I'm going to assume most of it is women, all right? But my goal with all of it is to kind of show that, you know what, dads are important, because I think we've lost that in society. I really do. I don't think a lot of people understand how critical fathers are to children. You know, and again, I don't want to get into all the negative, you know, dads walk away. I don't want to get into all that shit. That's not the purpose of this today, all right? I want to know what you think fathers bring to the table. And again, I'm not trying to knock mothers or single mothers in any way. We all have our strengths. We all have our weaknesses. So share with me what you think on that. David, more or less survival skills in life. Yeah, that's kind of, again, one of the things that I talk about is, and you could look at that in many ways, right? You know, it's a beautiful, one of the biggest disappointments that for my father was, my father loved to hunt. Oh, he loved it. Loved it. Every fall, as soon as deer season opened, he was out there opening day. And in New York, where I was, it was 14 to get your hunting license. So, you know, the year I turned 14, he went and got me a license. He was so excited for it. And we're sitting in a deer stand, you know, up in the tree for I don't know how many hours it was, and I hated it. I loved shooting. I had shot for years. I was a pretty good shot. And I had no problem with, I would have had no problem shooting a deer. We didn't see any. But just sitting there, and it was a chilly day, and, I'm like, this ain't for me. Just sitting there. I'm not one to just sit around. I need to be active. I like sports that are active, and I'm not knocking hunting in any way. Now, if I had to hunt, could I? Yes, I could, because he taught me those skills. But he was so disappointed. I could tell. He was so good about it. He was great about it. And, fishing was another. He liked to fish, not as much as hunting, but fishing to me, I'd rather watch paint dry. To me, it just does nothing. And that's okay. I know other guys that love it. I live near the ocean. I see guys fishing all the time for hours, and it's their peace, their way of enjoying life. Mine is going to the gym and pounding weights, But yeah, he never said he was disappointed. I'll give him that, but I could tell, Curtis, I don't feel like my kids need to do things the way I do them. I want my kids to be self-sufficient, independent, take initiative, ask for help, and not be afraid to fail. Bingo. Curtis, you and I think too much alike, which I already knew. That's the other thing I agree with, right? So I'm kind of talking about some of the things that I think that men fail all the time in life. And I'll give you an example. Simple one that I think everyone can understand. Dating. Guys know that if they go and ask, they're attracted to a girl and they want to ask her out and go on a date, it's a crapshoot whether she's going to say yes or no. right? More often than not, honestly, depending, they're going to get a no at least a few times in their life. I'm not calling it failure, but failure, right? You learn from that. That's an example of what I'm talking about. Again, it's learning how to fail and overcome it, learning that you're going to fail, how to respond to it. And then where the moms come in is that's where the nurturing side of it is to help them understand that it's not the end of the world, that kind of thing. That's the beauty of it. And I think the other thing, and again, these are if you actually think about it, these are biological things. These are in our core of our DNA and our RNA and all that stuff. You know, it is something that society wants to do away with, and it is doomed to failure. You know, I had a conversation, the podcast I just recorded before this. We were talking about how things have changed in the last 50 years. We established things for 1,000,000 years, right? Gender roles, if you want to call them that, whatever. We're trying to do away with all of them in the past 50 years. Really in the last 10 years, all right? That's never going to work. Because if you get in a survival situation, and they've studied this, where the comforts that we all in the States especially live under go away, men and women will naturally revert to their gender roles. It will happen. Are there exceptions? You better believe there are. Absolutely. This is not cut and dried black and white. But in general, they will go to that. And that's where, again, it's not a negative, it's a positive. And I think one of the things I want to teach on that, or in covering my article, is that it is a positive that way, and that dads teach people how to, as Cameron says here, be a man, be a gentleman, a protector, a teacher. I'm waiting to hear if somebody chimes in with something else that I want to cover. I'm holding it back myself. Be careful, mother. Just learn us to be emotional, nothing else. I get what you're doing there, but you know what? That's also true. Unfortunately, that talks to the differences between the way moms teach our daughters versus sons. A lot of mothers, and mine did in particular, taught me not to have emotions, or teach their sons not to have emotions, teach their daughters it's okay to have them. I'm not judging there. I'm just stating the absolute fact. Let me look at some other stuff here. I'm way behind on messages, I know. So Rocky Broad, you live in Asheville. I will be headed your way in October. So maybe we can hook up. Shane Sumner, I had to reparent myself. I tell my daughters to do them first, then be with someone else. Yes, beautiful. I'm going to touch on that in a little bit more, and just so stay tuned. Men are the best creation of God, and he knows it why he created us in his image. Okay. I'm not knocking you. I think he created women also. Well, I appreciate your content, because these relationship coaches aren't advising men. Oh, they've been horrific lately. I've done a few videos. Go check them out. They're on TikTok, IG, YouTube. Is it me? Or are these relationship coaches coming out of the woodwork lately? And man, and by the way, I tend to focus on the female ones. The male ones are just as bad. Oh my God. There's one, I think I'm going to do a video, one of my give and takes on it. What this guy's trying to teach guys is so bad. I literally went like this, listening to the video. I'm like, oh dude, no. So keep this in mind, folks. Relationship coaches is not a real thing. There's no criteria for it. There's no licensing for it. There's no nothing for it. You want to be a relationship coach? I just got to go, hey, I'm Dan. I'm a relationship coach, and I'm a relationship coach. I do not claim to be one. I am not a dating coach. Don't even remotely talk about that. I do coach men and help them with things, but I do not call myself a relationship or dating coach. All right. My primary focus is trying to help men be better, get them through certain things, as I've talked about before. And again, I don't want to sidetrack too much, but I am a I'm trained as a peer counselor for domestic violence, so I work with a lot of guys on that, stuff like that. Angel Warrior, in the famous world of Yoda, the biggest teacher failure is, let me just hold this up. Yoda is my hero. Do or do not, there is no try. That is my life motto. Better to ask forgiveness than permission. Do it or don't. Doesn't matter. If you don't try, that's failure. I always talk about that with my training clients. I don't care how many times you fail at a lift. It's irrelevant to me. The fact that you made the attempt and did or did not is where the benefit is. That's the core of my being. I've lived my whole life that way. Marcus Ratty, I tried that with my kids. My ex weaponized it against me. Rum Coke, love your content. Keep it going. Curtis, some other beautiful things over on YouTube. Learn for themselves. It's okay to cry. You know, interesting that you mentioned that, Curtis. Sorry. Again, guys, I'm fighting a little bit of a cold here, or allergies or something. I don't know what it is. One of the things that I think's been lost, and where dads need to step up a little, if I may say that, is having that conversation specifically with their sons to say it is okay to cry. Now, my dad was one of those, you're never going to show any emotion. He absolutely was. It's his generation. It was my generation, right? We were taught that. I kind of taught my kids that, and I regret it. I've changed that, but, you know, suck it up, rub some dirt on it, keep going, right? And in retrospect, that's wrong. One thing we need to do as dads, again, moms can do it. I'm not saying they can't, but dads can have more effect, especially with sons, is to teach them it is okay to cry. That's why I talk about it a lot. I say to guys all the time in my private, my private groups and the guys I coach, if you need to cry, cry. You will get no judgment from me. I will, when I did domestic violence groups in person, guys would break down. If they needed my shoulder to cry on, if they needed me to hold them, I did it. And I am so glad that I did. One thing I don't think people realize is that men, and more specifically boys in particular, need that. We need that shoulder to cry on. Again, I don't want to kind of change the conversation, but love that I was able to mention that. Rum Cook, I love your content. Keep it going. Rocky Bright, Mental Health Day. You never heard that one before? Try getting some employees. Woohoo, baby. It's one of the, at one point I had 12 employees. I don't anymore, and there's a reason why. Anyway, Brian, I suffer from time blindness. I expect you all of you to conform to my needs. You sound like somebody else I know. Sorry, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Just kind of scrolling through some of these comments. Guys, let me know, what did your dads teach you? If you're a dad, what are you teaching your children? I also want to hear a little bit about how dads raise daughters versus sons. I'm going to jump into that in a minute because I think it's an important thing. Angel, I have the videos of young people complaining they don't work to and shouldn't have to work. Yeah, there's been a plethora of them lately. Hey, Michelle, how you doing, babe? By the way, thank you for the basketball. I appreciate it. I'm going to let that one go, Michelle. Can you tell us how many of the wives you had kids with, as well as the age of the kids? If you're asking me, I had children with 2 of my wives. I had 4 with my first wife. They are, the oldest is 37, and twins 35, and daughter 30, I'm doing the math here, 31. And then with my second wife, I had a daughter. She is 27. She had a son when I married her, who was technically my stepson, but I raised him, and I consider him to be my son, and he's the same age as my twins. So yeah, my kids are all in their late 20s, 30s. Michelle, Reclaiming Your Voice 2. By the way, if you're not following Reclaiming Your Voice 2, Michelle, go follow her. She's freaking awesome. And I'm not saying that because she's here. Dads bring the idea of positive risk assessment and safety. That is a huge one. Yes, Michelle. When a boy wants to jump, dad will, will teach him and catch him. Yep. Um, one of the things I'm kind of laughing about it is we teenage boys, and I was one once, many, many, many moons ago, we like to do a lot of stupid shit. We love to do stupid shit. And that's okay. That's how we learn, right? But your point is spot on, Michelle, right? One of the things that I think dads do is they allow their sons primarily, but daughters too, to do things that are risky and make mistakes, but are there, as Michelle said, to pick them up, number one. And number two, to go, you really think that's a good idea? I remember my father one time doing that. I was going to do something, and I won't say what it is, because, they'll jump on me for promoting something. Which, at 60 years old, I look back and go, that was really stupid. And all my dad did was look at me and go, really? You really think you should do that? That's all he said. And I didn't do it. Thank God I didn't, because it was really dumbass. Right? But yeah. The most important things my father taught me is respect for myself and others and patience. Thank you, Cameron Grizzly Bear. Is that your last name, Bear? I love it. Yes. One thing I think, and let me kind of just sidetrack quick, and I know I'm behind on the messages, and I'll get to them. This is something I think a lot of people don't understand, that daughters get from fathers. Sons get it too, but daughters more so. Mothers teach their daughters how to respect themselves. Yes, they do. Fathers do also, and differently. One of the things that I've heard in many relationships that I've been serious ones, my wives all said it, was that they married their father. And that is something you tend to see girls do. If they've had a good relationship with their father, they tend to look for guys that are like their father. Okay? And some will argue if it's bad, they'll look for the bad ones. And I don't disagree. All right? And I think along those lines, one of the reasons for that is that, and I'm not talking the daddy's little girl stuff. That's important, critical. And let me tell you, ladies, listen to me right now. If you're a woman listening to me, listen to me right now. There is no greater feeling in the world, none, than when a daughter calls her father daddy. My 35-year-old daughter, she'll call me dad most of the time, but every once in a while she calls me daddy, and it just melts my heart. It's like she reverted to 5 years old. And if you think it doesn't hit home to guys, you're crazy. You're crazy. Little fun fact for you. But yeah, I think that fathers teach daughters to respect themselves more, or differently than mothers. Differently, not more. Differently than mothers do. And think about that. The more someone, male or female, respects themselves, the more likely they're going to see or get involved in a relationship with someone that respects them. So Cameron, great point that you made there. And something I think is important to touch on. Brian, true masculinity is having control of oneself. It's actually a very feminine trait to lose your temper. Yeah, I get where you're going with that. Check out the podcast that's coming out Sunday, because we touch on this a little bit. And the guy that, Kumar is his name, the guy that I interviewed wrote an amazing book. And I don't want to delve into that right now, but one of the things he talks about is what is masculinity. And part of it is the control. And you're spot on. Shoulder Bandy, if I did something wrong or said something to disrespect, all my father had to do was give me the look. Yep. So as a dad, I will tell you this, and I actually proud of this. I told you I have a 35-year-old daughter. I have a 31-year-old daughter, and I have a 27-year-old daughter. I can make them cry without saying a word, just by giving them that look. They know. And I don't give it to them that often, but they knew when they were younger, man. They got that look. That was it. Never had an argument afterward. I can honestly say this, hand to God, swear to whatever, there was never a single time that I hit my children. Not ever. My methods of discipline were totally different. Let me tell you, taking away the internet back then, which all I had to do was turn it off, was probably the most effective one. And I had 6 kids, and they all loved to rat each other out because they knew if they ratted each other out, they wouldn't get held responsible for the other one. It's amazing what peer pressure will do. But yeah, they knew, and I rarely yelled. I'm not saying I didn't yell from time to time because I did, but they knew if they got that one look, that was it, and they knew, and that's something that's missing. That's something that I've heard people say, "Oh, if my mother gave me the look." I've had guys say, "If my wife gives me a certain look." That's what we're talking about. So if you can't relate to it, that's what I mean. Marcus, the whole agenda pushed is to get rid of dads. Yeah, that's been the agenda, and that's one of the reasons I'm writing the article the way I am, is to kind of hopefully get people to understand what a mistake that's been. Forget family court and all that shit. It's irrelevant. Think about it from a child's perspective. What they always say. They always say, what best interest of the child? How is not having both parents involved not in the best interest of the child? I hear all the time people make that argument, and then I throw that at them, and they come up with BS stuff. Michelle, children riding a bike and the kid falls off. The mom will say that's enough, but dad, oh yeah. And dads will not, it's funny that you say that, because I remember when my kids were learning how to ride the bike, I had them do it on the grass because I knew they were going to fall. And I would, you start out, you push them, and then you let go. Training wheels were off, and they fell, and we knew they were gonna cry, and they might get hurt, and all that. Dads are much more likely to do that. Not saying there aren't moms that do that; they absolutely are. But, and they'll keep pushing them to get back on. Yes, Michelle, spot on. Agree. And again, that's not knocking moms or women. It's not making dads heroes. It's reality. And that's stuff that we all need to acknowledge and appreciate and tell others about, right? Brian, moms do for their kids, fathers teach their kids to do for themselves. Yeah, I agree. And to the better both ways, right? I couldn't agree more with you. I'm just kind of thinking on that a second. I could not agree with you more on that. Kids growing up without fathers turned into people user control. It's, then you make, I agree with you, right? So one of the things that I think dads do a better job of, my personal opinion, you can disagree with me, I'm okay with that, is that dads teach kids to have, or to put up better boundaries, to not feel bad about doing that. Especially, I would argue again, for daughters, right? And that bears out if you look at the data. And I don't want to get this political or any of that crap right now, but the bottom line is, if you look at the data, girls from single mother homes tend to be more promiscuous at a younger age than those where dad's involved or in the home. That's reality. I'm not knocking moms. I'm not praising dads. That's reality, and that is a fact. Russell, dads are extremely important, but in today's society, they're disposal and discriminated against. Yes, and that's the reason for my article, right? That's why I want to know. Share the stories of what your dad did for you, because then I can incorporate them in my article. Because one of the things that I don't think people realize, right, when you are writing, I've written for articles for years now, when you can add a personalized touch to it. One of the best articles I ever wrote in the fitness world, I talked about one of my clients, and she gave me permission to share her thing, who was 50 whatever years old and had never run a 5K in her life, didn't think she ever would, and we worked with her, and she ran her first 5K, and she allowed me to talk about and share that story. But in personal stuff, right? And it actually made national news, right? Way back, this is 8-9 years ago. And that story resonated with so many people, and credit to her, not me. I was just writing what she was saying. But when you have personalized stories like that, it's much better than me sitting there, telling my story, so to speak. um Michelle, men have a higher success rate in business because they're willing to take risks and fail. That is true. I know a lot of people don't like hearing that, um but that is reality. I mean, all you gotta do is look at the data on that. um some other stuff, skip those. um just catching up here. I'm like way behind. Dads seem to help. Michelle, you're on a roll today. Dads seem to help kids find their purpose, where mothers are too worried about others' opinions. Yeah, I get your point on that. Dads, again, it kind of goes into the risk thing, right? Dads are willing to help their kids take risks, managed risks, much more than mothers are. Mothers like to play it safe, and that's not a knock on them. I'm not trying to knock them, but that's true. That's a fair thing. Um, I have a theory on why. Wait. I have a theory on why so many dating coaches, because boys don't have fathers in their life. Can you extrapolate more on that, Michelle? I'm just curious. Um, Billy Connolly did a great piece on life coaches. Hold on, I'm going to write that down and go look for it. I'm guessing it's on the tube because I have not seen it. Thank you for sharing that. Grizzly. I love that. I get it now, Michelle. Okay. Brian, is it okay to cry, though? For men? No, it's not. Now, yes, it is, but it will be held against you. Sorry. I don't care how many women will sit there and say, no, they don't. The facts are, you ask guys, they know, right? They all know it will be held against you. As some said, not in front of other women. One of the things, too, again, this podcast that I have coming out Sunday, and yes, I am shilling for it. Sorry, guys, my voice is fighting me right now. One of the things we talked about is that, men need support systems from other men, right? And my guest talked about having your brotherhood. I call my private group the Brotherhood of Men. Him and I get along so well because he was kind of saying stuff that I already talk about. But my private group where we get together, which we're doing this Saturday online, it's a place where men can safely open up, and no one can ever find out about it because it's not recorded. There's you don't have to worry about. People talk about going into private Facebook groups or using private groups in Quora and all those things. That stuff can be subpoenaed and pulled. The way I do it, nothing is tracked, right? We have it. No one can ever see it again. And there are guys that will cry in that, and it's okay to do that. And, as my guest said, it's having that brotherhood or board of directors, if you will. I have that, right? I have a couple of male friends that I can go to. I have a female friend who might as well be a male friend. I've talked about her before. She's my best friend. She will call me out on my shit. She has no problem calling me out on my shit. My other buddies, same thing, right? We as guys need that. And then conversely, if I've been rocked by something, whatever it might be, I can turn to them and cry. And I know I have nothing to worry about. I can't tell you the peace that will bring you as a man to know that you have that, even if you never use it. Because most guys don't have that. So if you don't have that, go find it, guys. All right. That could be a whole live in and of itself. Seekers 5, do women judge men when they cry? I think they do. I can tell you with absolute certainty they do. They will never admit it, but they do. Good boy Rocco. My dad was not around as I was growing up, so much was, yeah. And I'm sorry that happened to you. I don't know if this is the right way to put it, but you aren't the exception. You're now the rule. Most of today's kids, the majority now, have grown up without their father around, every other weekend and maybe one night a week. That's not having your dad around, okay? Marcus, I teach my kids not to worry about what others think. Be yourself. Boom. Another round of applause, right? Very important. Who gives two craps? This is what I teach guys too. Stop worrying about what anybody else thinks about you, because you can't control that. You can only control what you think about yourself. There's my trainer voice. I think some fathers unfortunately reinforce double standards. They treat the girls better. Yeah, better. I might disagree with you on that, Michelle. I think differently is the word I would go with. I could see your point, though. I could see it. You know, with my girls, I did raise them differently. So let me talk about that. You know, I did have different rules, so to speak, for the girls than the boys. I did. Um, and it wasn't one-sided one way or the other. It was pretty equal, the differences in the rules. Beautiful example. The boys, I tended not to let have as many. We were the house in the neighborhood that everybody's kid came over to, and we'd have. There wasn't a weekend we didn't have sleepovers, and the boys, they wanted to have 3 or 4 of their friends over, whereas the girls were more one. So I tended to be different with the way I approached it, because let me tell you, if you've had 5 rambunctious boys, 10, 12-year-old boys running around, that's one example, right? Probably a really bad one. But, the other side of it is I also, taught the girls how to change a tire and stuff like that. So I get what you're saying, Michelle. I don't disagree with you, but I think differently is the word I would choose over better. Scott Miller, I'm a big fan of your work. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Patrick, my dad taught me not to steal and respect others. My mom taught me the opposite. That's another thing. I think dads do a little bit better job in general. It's not universal at teaching. I don't want to use morals. Teaching the right path to go down, right? Not steal, stuff like that. Shane is asking Michelle who. She's not coming up in the feed. It's Reclaiming Your Voice 2. Her actual name is Michelle, so I tend to call her Michelle because that's a lot easier to say than Reclaiming Your Voice 2. And you need to go follow her. She's awesome. Brian, did you guys go drag racing in your way? Yes, we did. So, you just brought back a memory to me. So one of the areas I lived with, we had a hill. We called it Dead Man's Hill. For no particular reason, then we took our life in our hands, and we had our little red wagons, and yep, we used to race them down that hill, and in the winter time, we would toboggan down it. It was a street. Yeah. You just brought back a huge memory I hadn't thought about in years. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. Some other stuff. So, guys, if you're just jumping on, the topic today is we're talking about the importance of dads in children's lives and what benefits they bring, how they do things differently than moms. And again, it's not to slight moms in any way. And I'm asking people, well, one, if you're jumping on, I love to hear where you're from because it's just my thing. Let me chime in. Let me know where you're from. A lot of people have already done that. We've got people from all over the world here. I think that's one of the most amazing things about this. So share that with me, but share any stories you want. What did your dad teach you? What is the most important thing your dad taught you? If you're a dad, what do you think is the most important thing you can teach your kids? Because I'm writing an article about it, and I may incorporate some of this stuff. In fact, I will, and I can tell you already, I'm going to incorporate some of this stuff. Once the article's published, and for those of you that don't know how this works, I'll probably write it over the next 2 weeks or so, submit it to them. I can't tell you when it'll go in the magazine. It could be September. It won't be August because they've already gone to print on that. It could be September. It might not be. It'll next spring. You never know. It depends on the editors. Generally, though, I'm guessing it's probably going to be September, October, November, somewhere in there. Cameron, I'm 52 and still doing stupid shit. I have to grow old and I don't have to grow up. Amen, brother. I'm 60 and doing the same stuff, and I'm okay with that. Scott, I wish my dad asked me if I was sure when I was getting married. I have the same thing because my dad kind of said, "You sure about this one?" He was right. I defied him, but he was right on the first marriage. Um, you're not wrong. uh, Dads teach their sons how and when to bring out the beast as well as how to contain the beast. Yes, there's a great point, Angel Warrior. Great point. And I don't think, just my 2 cents, I don't think moms can do that. They can do it with daughters. I'll say that. I don't think moms can teach sons that. And again, I'm not knocking moms. I think that that's a unique thing that dads teach. Is I call it how to be a man, to kind of sum it up. When and where to be a man, to be that protector, to be that whatever word you want to use, and when not to, when to hold back. I think that's something only a guy can know, right? And I would argue on the opposite side, I think the same thing, moms can teach daughters that. Michelle, I need to be on your podcast again. Let's chat, sister. I'm actually booking out for September right now. I got a whole string of stuff set up. Scott, I do the angry dad voice. I'm trying to catch up on some of these comments, guys. I'm sorry, I'm way behind. I love what everybody's saying. I've never heard a dad call parenting a job, yet some women do and expect praise. Interesting. I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever heard a dad call parenting a job either. You got me thinking on that. Let me get back to that. Vino, I love your videos. Saw 2. Well, there's probably about 200, so go check them all out. Hopefully you like them. Dads teach their daughters how to spot the true spiritual masculine in men. Yes, and they mostly do that, I would argue, through example. It's like I said, my wives have universally said that I am their father. Every one of them. I've married my father. Which, by the way, is probably why I got along so good with all of my father and ex-father-in-laws. We were like this. All of us. We got along fantastic. Mother-in-laws, not so much. But the dads loved me. And I loved them. Still do. Although they've all passed on. It's kind of catching up here on some of these things. Okay, so somebody's asking... some mail I can write to. If you ever want to contact me, I usually talk about this at the end. The best way, guys, I know you love to DM me. No joke. I've got thousands of DMs I have not read. Thousands of them across all the social medias. I'm never going to get to all of them. I need a PA, a personal assistant, to get through it all. If you have something that you really need to get a hold of me on, you need to email me, menneedtobeheard@gmail.com. menneedtobeheard@gmail.com, or go to my website, menneedtobeheard.com, and you can email me through that. And I apologize, guys. No joke, on an average day, I get several hundred DMs. And I can't possibly respond to them all. I wish I could. I feel horrible that I can't, because I know a lot of guys are reaching out to me for help. And I'm one person, right? I do all of this work myself. Give you a perspective, I do a podcast every week. To prepare for it is a couple of hours. To record it, 2 to 3 hours. To edit it, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. To get it posted and all that. Just that alone is a full day's work, just to give you kind of perspective on it. And that's if I do nothing else. And all the other videos I do, if you're a creator, you know what I'm talking about. So I'm not trying to make excuses, but that's the reality. And that's why I know people sometimes get upset at me for not responding to their DMs. I just can't. Instagram alone right now, I was looking just before I popped on this. I can't scroll all far enough to get them all. So I apologize for that. Angel, again, the opposite side. Dads teach your daughters how to respect their true, I think, not only how to respect it, but what it is. Their true spiritual femininity. I think in a lot of ways, women learn it from their fathers every bit as much as they do from their mothers. I would argue that. Just kind of scrolling through some of these. Tony, sorry, a men only space, is that allowed in 2023? Honestly, no, it's not. It's why they keep trying to shut us down, those of us that do that. I've been banned. I know Michelle's had issues. There's a few of us that have at one time or another. Palzer, hello from Germany. Guten Tag, wie geht's? Toronto, Houston, UK, Houston. I love this. By the way, those of you in Houston, stay cool, my friends. Any of us in the South, it is roasting right now, so I know what it's like. Where I am, as I sit, it is 90 something degrees and is about as humid as it gets, and I live half a mile from the ocean. Jack Buckle, best thing to be instilled is independence. I do agree with you there, right? And I think that kind of speaks to the difference between men and women. Men are far more independent than women. Women tend to want to be in a group. They tend to make decisions as a group, get everyone to buy in, not knocking it. Men tend to make their own decisions and go their own way. It's the beauty of it when both parents are parenting their children is they see both sides of that and they benefit from it. Greece. Another one of the most important things dad teach kids how to get out of their comfort zone. Yes, take the risks, smart risks, not the stupid shit I did as a teen. I did some really dumb stuff as a teenager, really dumb stuff. And as a boy, stuff that, here's one. You want a fun story? I don't know. Do they still have big wheels around? I'm sure they do. Well, my sister had a big wheel because my younger sister's 6 years younger than me. Well, we had ramps that we used to jump our bikes over. Well, one time I took my sister's big wheel and we had our ramp set up and one of my buddies was laying down in between the ramps. So this is how far back it was. This is when Evel Knievel's the thing and he was jumping cars on his motorcycle. Well, I was going to jump the big wheel over my friend who was the car. Needless to say, I did not make the jump and I landed flat on him. Really stupid when you think about it. He got hurt pretty bad. I think he cracked a rib and let's just say it wasn't good. All right, we'll leave it at that. Watching from Kenya. I love it. I'm just kind of scrolling through. My dad was amazing. My mom, meh. Sorry to hear that. I would argue the same for me. I've talked about my mother before. I'm not going to talk about it again. My dad told me not to marry my ex. He was the only one and I didn't listen. Yeah, same for me, Jack. Exactly the same for me. Everything he said was going to happen, happened. And the two of them did not get along. And she was very abusive to me and basically cut me off from him for a number of years. We reconnected later, but everything he said was true. And he was blunt about it, which is one of the things in retrospect, yes, I should have listened to him, but I also appreciate that he did that. Thank you for loving my channel. Do you know that Europe is like a post-American behavior now? Yes, I do. I would also argue Australia and basically all of Western culture has become very Americanized. I do think there's some uniqueness to different areas. And I think the internet has a lot to do with it. Like I say on here, I love hearing where people are from and we're having voices from literally all over the world. I think at this point, other than Antarctica, we've hit every continent. That's the beauty of it. The other side of it, though, and I don't know if this is a positive or negative, but conversations like we're having here make us all more homogenous. We all tend to start thinking more, groupthink, if you will. And I mean that in a positive way, not a bad, negative way. Life was easier in the 90s and people didn't grow dumb. Well, I would argue life was even easier in the 70s, and a hell of a lot better. The 90s weren't bad for me. Early 90s. But yeah, we're just kind of catching up on some of these. Ireland. Men listen to their own instinct. Women listen to their friends. Brandon said that. Yeah, it kind of dovetails with what I was saying. Men tend to go their own way. And by the way, I think that needs to change a little bit. One thing that I would argue that men need to do a better job of is supporting one another. So again, I keep going back to this podcast because it's fresh in my mind. I haven't edited it yet, but we had a hell of a talk. Um, Again, having that board of directors, the brotherhood around you, um, having that person to have a conversation with. One thing that I would say to the guys listening to this is one of the biggest fears that the men I work with have is being able to open up to me. And I get it, right? You're afraid that you're going to get judged, mocked, and all that, because we've all faced that. What I will tell you is the same thing that I observed and I've talked about before when I was counseling domestic violence, male domestic violence victims, is when you open up, you're going to be shocked. I can't even begin to explain to you how big of a shock it's going to be. How many guys are going to say to you, well, I thought that was just me. You mean you're going through it too? Or some variation thereof. We're all facing the same issues. We don't talk about it. We don't share it. We don't work one well together on it. And that needs to change. And I'll give you a beautiful example of it. And again, I don't want to get into this too far, but if you look at something like shared parenting, right? I talked about this on the live last week. Florida passed it. If you think the women's groups have not gathered their forces by the thousands and are doing everything they can to fight it, both Florida and across the nation, they are, because I've infiltrated some of their groups. The other side of it, the men, they're not doing a damn thing, right? They go their own way. We need to be more supportive of one another. Just my 2 cents on that. Scrolling. I'm trying to catch up because I'm way behind. Jack again. Dad warned me, look at your in-laws. That's who you're marrying, not her. My dad, and actually my best friend's dad, they said it different ways. But my best friend's dad said, if you want to see how the woman that you're about to marry is going to be in a few years, see what her mother is like. Now, he was talking physically primarily, but he's not wrong. He wasn't wrong, right? And you could also make the argument, same thing in the other guy, right? You want to see what a guy's going to be like, see what his father's like. But yeah, and you know what? At 60 years old, I can tell you, so true, absolutely true. Trinidad and Tobago, Stephen Scott. So my friend that I had as my guest on my podcast is from there. So his name is Kumar. He wrote a book. So let me shill the podcast real quick for this Sunday. Kumar did a book targeted towards men and helping them to look differently at a whole host of subjects. And honestly, he gave me a copy to read before we did the podcast. I've read probably thousands of books on, men, relationships, going back to men are from Mars, women are from Venus, all that crap. I would put this in my top 3 books I've ever read for that type of stuff. And you need to go get that book. And if you watch the podcast Sunday, and the conversation we did some technical difficulties here and there. Just bear through those. But he's, for those of you that follow my podcast, he's doing a 1-week special. It'll launch Sunday at 11 Eastern US. Right after that, you can go order the book for 99 cents. It will be the best 99 cents you have ever spent in your life. Read the book. Whether you're in a marriage that's perfect or a relationship that you consider perfect, or whether you've been burned every single time, you will learn stuff about this book. What I love about what he talks about in the book, and I've read it, and I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I have a lot of knowledge in these areas. What I love about it more than anything else is he just presents the information and he gets you thinking. And he got me thinking, and I'm in a pretty healthy state of mind right now, but he got me looking back at some stuff and questioning some stuff and saying, bringing a little accountability to the table, if you will, and making me see things that I kind of knew, but I hadn't thought about in a while. And it's good to refresh on that. When it comes out, where's the paper on that? If you want to see it, it's called Low Battery, a Manual for Men. It's available on Amazon. Kumar Prasad is the gentleman's name. If you wait till Sunday, you can get it for 99 cents off Amazon. Download. Amazing book, and I am shilling it. And you're going to probably hear me talk about it in a couple of videos because it is that good. It is eye-opening. He talks about things like sex, not, in a graphic term, but how it's different for men and women, how the importance of it all, things that we need to think about with it. He talks about marriage. He talks about dating. He's got some stuff in there on dating that I hadn't even thought about. Fantastic thoughts. Really go check it out. Hydru Warguras. I love some of these names you guys come up with because I am horrible at pronouncing stuff. Do you think Western dating culture is eventually going to get to the East? Well, last week's podcast, which was on Passport Bros, so those of you who are Passport Bros or thinking about it need to go watch that podcast, because Alex and I had a hell of a conversation because I'm not an expert on it. I am not a Passport Bro. I doubt I ever will be one or would be one. He goes through the whole thing, the benefits, some of the cons, but he talks about how, yes, Western dating culture is infecting the East. He lives in Thailand now, and he sees it in some areas. So, yeah, if you are a Passport Bro or thinking about it being a Passport Bro, go check it out. It's over on the Tube, Spotify, and Apple. I'm hoping to get up on Pandora soon. For the podcast, go check it out. It was last Sundays that I did it. But it's really interesting. I'm meh. Catching up here. Unlike Western society, Islamic society respects fathers, and the difference is very obvious. I'll be honest with you, I am not well versed on his Islamic society, and that's my fault. But I do know Islam in general has a different viewpoint. Some good, some bad. I'm not knocking Islam. I have not a great friend, but a buddy who is Islamic, and he's talked to me a little bit about it. And you know what? I need to learn more from him because I freely admit I'm not that well versed on it. Johnny, should I move to Thailand? Well, I'm not going to answer that other than to say, go watch the podcast before you think about it. That's all I'm going to say. As I said, with my podcast and with my videos, guys, I don't like to give my judgment on things. Passport Bros being the perfect example, right? I am neither for it or against it. It's not for me. I've talked about it in the past that I've seen really good out of it. The best marriage I ever saw, my buddy Sean married a girl from the Philippines. There is no better marriage in the world. My buddy Jeff married a girl from Russia. It was a disaster, and he has not seen his daughter in 20 years. I actually have lost contact with him. I'm trying to find him again because I'm worried that something happened to him. It was bad. So I see pros and cons to it. Go check out that podcast, whether it's Thailand, the Philippines, wherever. Alex did a really good job. And again, we weren't judgmental. We just gave you the information. Obviously, Alex is for it because he did it. But yeah. All right, let's see. I got about 5 more minutes, guys. So again, I want to hear any more dad stories you want to share or things that you think dads do differently or better. Not better, but the benefits that dads bring to children. Brandon, truth be told, I'm not interested in being a Passport Bro. Again, I'm neutral on it. For some guys, I think it's a good thing. For some guys, I think it would be a disaster. For me, it's not something I would do. And that's not a knock on people in other countries in any way, shape, or form. But it's a true Passport Bro. You're leaving the States. Like Alex lived in near San Francisco. He now lives in Thailand. He's never going back. He walked away from his family, Now, will he go back to visit? Yes, I'm talking now to live. But it's, again, I'm neutral on it. I don't want to give judgment on it because I think it's unique to each individual to make that decision. Um, oh, I love this. So Grizzly wrote, I drive trucks long distance, have a small group of other drivers. We support one another. That's exactly what I'm talking about, right? That brotherhood, board of directors. I'm thinking truckers, man. Do you talk on the CB radios at all? I used to have. Wow, here's another memory. CB radios in the mid 70s were a huge thing. I had one in my car. That's kind of disappeared. I know the truckers still use them, but yeah. Um, Thailand is growing middle class. It's westernizing. Try Vietnam. Interesting. Alex didn't really say that. Alex was very pro Thailand, by the way. But he also said you got to watch the areas you go into. Maybe that's what you're talking about there. What is this? I'll give you a gummy bear and be in the. Michelle, you can give me all the gummy bears you want, but I only got about 3 minutes, so I just saw that. Mason. I got my wife 20 years ago in the PI. I guess that's Philippines. It's been great. My buddy Sean, I envy the man. That marriage, they are so in tune with one another. They truly love one another. I mean, it is amazing. It is. I've even said to him, it's sickening to watch the two of them together. They've been married now, let me think, 2008. So what's that, 15 years? It's what it should be. And, it can work. But yeah, it just is what it is. I guess it's a roll of the dice, right? My buddy Jeff would totally tell you go the opposite. Do not go overseas. Just trying to catch up on some message. I'm almost caught up. I see guys talking about different things. So I got couple more minutes because I do have to wrap up by 5:30 today. Couple things that I just want to touch on is, like I said, the upcoming podcast. Kumar and I are talking about this book that he's got coming out. He's also going to be coming on because we couldn't even begin to scratch the surface on what's in that book. It is one of the best things I've ever read. And I really hope you'll tune into that podcast. We had a few technical difficulties here and there. He lives in Panama, and he's on satellite. So for the most part, it's listenable. I'm going to do some editing on it. But if you bear with it and listen to what he has to say, and more importantly, get that book. If you're a guy, you need to read that book. It will blow your mind. If you're a woman, that book is not written for you. That said, and I said this on the podcast to him because he's very clear it's not written for women. One of two things will happen. If you read it with an open mind, you are going to learn how men think, feel, and you will be the better for it as a woman. You will have a much deeper understanding of men and how they tick, and it is not what you all think it is and what you hear from each other on the internet. The worst thing that happens is women try to educate women on how men think, and they're almost always wrong. Read that book with an open mind, you will get an education. If you read it with a closed mind, you're going to hate it.